everybody, and I'm very pleased today to have a very distinguished guest with us in front of the International Subcommittee on Human Rights. I would like to welcome to the committee Her Excellency Atifete Yahyaga, who is the former President of Kosovo. We also have Ambassador Luzum Husseini, who is accompanying her today. And the former president has done a lot of work on women and sexual violence in conflict, and I believe that is the topic that she's here to discuss today. So since our time is very short, I would invite Her Excellency to speak for 7 or 8 minutes, and then we will open it up to one question from each side, and hopefully we will have a very productive discussion. So welcome, and go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Anita. It's my real pleasure to see you, and I am very honored to be here today with Ambassador Husseini at the Parliament of Canada, at the Subcommittee on International Human Rights. And in the very beginning, please allow me to express my deepest thanks and the gratitude on behalf of all institutions of Kosovo and the people of Kosovo for the outstanding support from Canada's institution and the people of Canada, that we are almost now going to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the established relation between Canada and Kosovo. And you are and have been a strategic partner for the people of Kosovo and the institutions of Kosovo, which has begun in a most trying time for my country and for our people. And we will be forever grateful for the support that you have given to us with the outstanding job of all men and women that have served under the UN and other mission in Kosovo, to be able to maintain and establish the long-lasting peace in the territory of Kosovo. But the presence of the international mission went even beyond the borders of Kosovo. And what your men and women have done there, they have contributed to build also that long-lasting peace for the entire region of the southeastern part of Europe. Alongside of many of the achievements that Kosovo has done in these past few years, I always refer that we have gone through 3 major stages for this almost 20 years after the end of the war in Kosovo. We went from the war towards the peace, from the state-owned economy towards the free market economy, and from the dictatorship towards the democracy. And we wouldn't be able to achieve all of that if we didn't have the support from our strong partners and allies the way that we have had for these past 20 years. Kosovo is and has been a good success story of the huge partnership between its international community and the institutions of Kosovo. And this has been also symbolized by the composition of our country, that has been one of the biggest strengths of our country, where all of its ethnicity and the other religious communities in Kosovo enjoys equal rights and equal obligation, which is also foreseen by the Constitution of Kosovo, that we were able to build not only in these past 20 years of the end of the war and 10 years of the declaration of the independence of Kosovo, but this has been our biggest strength for the past many decades and the centuries between Kosovo, our country of Kosovo as well. We have also started, not only that we have inaugurated our 10 years of the good relation between Kosovo and Canada, but we have just recently signed also the first agreement which protects the investment for the investment protection of the investment between Canada and Kosovo, and the joint declaration on progressive and inclusive trade between Kosovo and Canada, which is another cornerstone between the relation of Kosovo and Canada, which I personally, but also the government of Kosovo, would like also to see expanding in the other fields of the mutual interest between both of our countries as well. I do know that Kosovo is a quite of the far country for Canada, but it is a country which is almost in the heart of the Europe, that we have made tremendous progress for these past many years. But in the field that we still need the further support, mainly from the countries which have taken in a way the global leadership into the certain fields, which is the case of Canada and the Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy, that we as the country has not been foreseen to be a part of it so far, and has not benefited out of this international assistance program that has been launched by the friendly country of Canada. And on behalf of the institutions of Kosovo and many women organizations of our country, I would like to see the possibility of having Kosovo to be a part of this assistance, that we can greatly benefit out of your experience and the expertise. And again, Kosovo is also in the heart of the Europe, and the competition is quite growing in the entire region of the southeastern part of the Europe, and sometimes not from very favorable powers. And so by having your presence there would help us and would enable us to advance some of the agendas which would be of the mutual interest. And when it's a matter of the women and the women empowerment, to me the logic goes behind that is not only that you don't invest only in an individual, but you also invest into the family, you invest into the future of that particular society. And especially that Kosovo has over 51% of this population are the women, not even mention the 61% of the population are the young people, which goes under the age of the 30, and out of this 61%, 50% are the women. And so this investment would be very much crucial for the future of our country. And before I end, Anita, I just want to press a special thanks to you on behalf of the many of the women parliamentarians of Kosovo, that you have worked with them personally, and your efforts has been very well recognized also by your government with your peace medal that has not only meaning for you, but also a meaning for many women of Kosovo, that you have helped them, and that I would like that contribution of yours to be expanded with other members of the parliament, to be that voice of reason on the further strengthening international statehood of Kosovo, and being that voice of reason of the Kosovo's further reaching its rightful place into among the other nations. So one more time, thank you very much, and it is my pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you very much, Filimanderit Shum, and it's an absolute pleasure for us to have you here today as well. Before we continue, I would like to acknowledge that we have with us today the delegation from the European Union Subcommittee on Human Rights, our sister committee, the chair of the committee, and 6 other members of the delegation who are here with us today. And I'd like to thank you very much for your intervention, and also to state that my own experience in Kosovo over the course of 1 year during the time that they declared independence was very profound, and I know that Canada and Kosovo have always shared a very strong relationship. To begin, I would like to turn the questions over to Mr. Anderson for 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being with us today. I'd like to just start. You've done a lot of work on, I think, with the National Council on survivals of sexual violence. We've had other hearings here on particularly the things that have happened in the area that ISIS was so strong in, Daesh was so strong in. And I'm just wondering if you can give us some advice about how we might go about helping them to establish the structures that they need in order to bring justice to their area as well. I guess I'm interested in how have you approached getting justice, particularly in local communities? I know there were people who have been charged and convicted at the international courts, but in local communities, rural communities, people know each other, people know who did what, and I'm just wondering if you had any success in setting up structures that actually lead to justice in those areas as well.
Well, thank you very much. And actually, you have touched upon a topic which has been very close to my heart for the entire term in my presidency for 5 years, from 2011 to 2016, and actually it continues even after I ended my mandate. For this past almost 3 years, I have ended my mandate. The estimated number of the survivors of the sexual violence during the wartime, it's about 20,000 women and men that have been raped during the wartime in Kosovo by the paramilitary and the military forces of Serbia. Despite the fact that I can say that even from our part, we have not been so proud, because for the continuous 15 years after the end of the war, we kept this topic as the silence. We kept as a topic of the taboo, and we have contributed for the past 15 years to build into the stigma towards the survivors of the sexual violence by simply not speaking about this particular topic, by this particular crime, which has been used as a tool of war towards the innocent people of Kosovo. Back in 2011, when I was elected, we started the first institutional approach on identifying the proper institutional steps and taking the necessary institutional steps on their reintegration, rehabilitation, and resocialization, including the access to the medical services towards the whole survivors of the sexual violence. Something that has not been properly addressed is this culture of impunity and dealing properly with the justice. Only about 4 cases has been proceeded towards the International Court of Justice into the Hague, but only the hearings has taken part about these particular cases, but not a proper results has been achieved into the process of the hearing and the indictments towards the rape cases. Most of the cases has been reported as the war crime cases, because these are the part of the war crime cases, but none of them has been singled out as the rape cases that has been used as a tool of war. Most of the perpetrators are already in Serbia. Serbia is not cooperating with the jurisdictions of Kosovo or the institutions of Kosovo in order to share the data and to share the statistics with institutions of Kosovo when we speak about the perpetrators of these horrendous crimes, because all of the victims already knows who has conducted this crime, because they have been or their neighbors, or they remember by their nicknames, by their ranks, or by the tattoos if they have belonged to any of the paramilitary forces. And so we are in a way facing with these challenges. On one side, not being recognized by the international levels, starting from the UN, because Kosovo is not a member of the United Nations, in a way by itself violating the Convention of the Human Rights, but not recognizing the rape that has been used as a tool of war towards the innocent citizens of Kosovo, at the same time facing with a lack of the cooperation by now our northern neighbor of Serbia, not to cooperate with institutions of Kosovo when it's the matter of the justice. And unfortunately, we have built for the past 20 years into this culture of impunity, which is one of the main requirements and demands by the survivors.
I think we'll run out of time here shortly, but I'm just wondering then, so is your main focus or your main concern dealing with the stigma? You're not going to get legal justice, it sounds like, if most of the perpetrators are outside the country. How are you dealing with the stigma that is around being a victim of rape? And we've faced this in other conversations we've had in other nations as well.
As regard of the stigma, we have moved quite along, starting from 2011, and having in consideration the taboo topic that has been kept for this since the end of the war, since 1999. And so it has been a turning point, not only for our institution, but itself for the survivors, back in 2011, specifically back in 2014, where I have established at that time the National Council for the Survivors of the Sexual Violence, which enabled me to bring through at the same decision-making table the government of Kosovo, the Parliament of Kosovo, international organization present in Kosovo, diplomatic corps, civil society, and media, which immediately 1 month after the work of the council, the law has been proposed to recognize their legal status as the civilian victims of the war. At the same time, we have initiated all of the institutional and civil society mechanisms in place in order to address, starting from their rehabilitation, reintegration, and the resocialization. But I will speak with the voice of a survivor of the sexual violence, that every time, sir, that I ask every survivor of the sexual violence, what else we can do as the institutions of Kosovo, despite their legal status, besides of your medical services, besides of your economic empowerment, do you know what is their continuous demand? We just want the justice. We want to see whoever has done this to us to be facing the justice. And this is the only peace that we will get for our hearts and minds. And so they will not get the necessary peace before we will start actively to deal with this culture of impunity and before seeing the perpetrators facing with the justice. Okay. But we will not be able to do that before we will have the cooperation by the neighboring country of Serbia, because it's one of the basic rights into the international relation is to cooperate with the justice, and they have not been done that so far for this past 20 years.
Thank you very much. We are out of time for that question, so we will now go to Mr. Fragiskatos for 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, both of you, for being here. Your Excellency, you were just speaking about justice, and maybe I think that's a point of departure here for me. I wonder if you could speak to efforts within Kosovo that have seen ethnic Albanians work with ethnic Serbs to achieve just that, justice, reconciliation, particularly on questions of sexual violence. I think it's really important when ethnic conflicts have taken place that we recognize that people on both sides of the divide have been injured, and when they work together, there's very good evidence, as you know, that clearly suggests that the prospects of peace for peace are certainly strengthened when they're working together in harmony and cooperation. So can you delve into that and where things might be in Kosovo at the present time on that issue?
Yeah. Thank you very much. And actually, in purpose, I mentioned in the very beginning that the Constitution of Kosovo enjoys and actually gives the equal rights to all citizens of Kosovo, regardless of their ethnical or the religious background. Kosovo has one of the most advanced constitution in the entire region of the southeastern part of the Europe, because by the Constitution we have recognized 8 constitutional communities which are living in Kosovo throughout the board, which they are enjoy equal rights and equal obligation, no matter if that, for example, if you have the Serbian minority community living in Kosovo, which represent from 8 to 10%, they enjoy equal rights and equal obligation as 90% of the population of the Kosovo Albanian. Or even if you have a Roma or Ashkali community that has less than 1% of the population, by the Constitution of Kosovo, they enjoy equal rights and obligations on that. And so when we speak about the crimes that have been conducted during the wartime in Kosovo, specifically on the survivors of the sexual violence, all of the policies that has been established are very inclusive and are the same across the board. No matter if we are speaking, because these 20,000 survivors of the sexual violence, among these 20,000, 1,000 of them are men, because even men have been raped during the wartime. Out of this, you have other community groups which are a part of the sexual violence, which are Serbs, which are Bosniak, which are Roma, which are Turkish, and other community groups. And all of the 4 organizations, NGOs, which have been certified by the government of Kosovo, they are reaching out to all of the community groups in Kosovo, and they are very inclusive into the whole of the process. But again, when we speak about the justice, no matter if you speak to the survivor of the Kosovo Albanian or to the survivor of sexual violence or the Kosovo Serb or the Kosovo Bosniak or Ashkali, the same requirement comes in the board, because we need a justice. So the matter of the justice is across the board towards all of the community groups, because the crimes has been committed. And so there is no amnesty towards anyone, and supposed not to be the amnesty. But unfortunately, amnesty is already in the table when you have the lack of the cooperation by the northern neighbor of Serbia, where most of the perpetrators have already escaped and are within the territory of Serbia. A good example of the cross-ethnic cooperation is specifically into the missing persons, because since the end of the war, we still have about 1,600 missing people, missing in different massive graves within the territory of Kosovo and the territory of Serbia. And now we have an association of the missing people, which is chaired by the Kosovo Albanian. It is vice-chaired by the Kosovo Serb and has members of other community groups. And the same concept is also being used by those associations of the women which are dealing with the survivors of the sexual violence, which are including all of the community groups in Kosovo.
Thank you very much. It's a follow-up question, I suppose, but moving beyond Kosovo, certainly you're well known because of the efforts that you have spearheaded there, but you're well known internationally. And so where do you think the world is? Are we headed in a positive direction, generally speaking, in the international community as far as putting forward initiatives to combat the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war? Are we headed in the right direction? Or, I know it's a general question, but I'd rather ask you a general question to sum things up.
Well, it's like making one step forward and 10 steps backwards. That is the approach that, unfortunately, at the global level, what we are facing. A big step forward has been made when the rape has been recognized as a tool of war after the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where 44,000 women have been raped during the wartime. And so globally, the culture of impunity, it is enormously dominated, not only for the crimes in Kosovo, not only for the crimes in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not only the crimes in Rwanda, in Sierra Leone and others, but we are also speaking from the crime that have been committed from the First World War and Second World War. And so you have this global trend that in a way it's not contributing, and it's in a way further contributing contributing on piling up on this culture, global culture of impunity when we speak about the survivors of this sexual violence. And so it has to start by having more women into the decision-making position. It has to start by having more women into the international organizations, starting from the UN level. And it has to start mostly, maybe the most priority one, it would be to have more women into the peace negotiation and peace roundtable discussion. Globally, if we see, we don't have only, maybe we have 1 or 2 cases where you have women which are being a part of the peace negotiation and peace talks. At the same time, women are mostly the one that are facing with the consequences, are the women and children.
Well, you have an ally in Canada and...
Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Frederiskatos, that's your time. And unfortunately, we're very limited for time today, so we will go to Ms. Hardcastle for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Your Excellency. I think I will pick up on that because there is a link between the culture of impunity and this idea of pursuing justice. There is a link with that and the status of women. And you had mentioned earlier that there's opportunities for Canada perhaps to help advance the empowerment of women through our programs, because you've recognized that link. When women's status is increased, so too does the pursuit of justice, and hopefully it would be that impunity. So maybe just take the rest of my time, talk about what you envision as some of the ways that we could be leveraging that with a partnership, and perhaps Mr. Hussaini also has some observations as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and actually it is an excellent question, because with a purpose I want to end my initial remarks by inviting and using or asking from you to be our voice within the government of Canada to expand the Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy, because itself the term of the international assistance policy should have a much wider reach out. And my understanding, if I'm not wrong, is that it is mainly focusing into Ukraine, it is focusing into Rwanda. Or, okay, so might be mistake, yeah. Yeah. So it's in Africa and Asia as the continents which you are very much focused. But it would be very beneficial if this assistance will be much more focusing into the post-war, post-conflict, and the transitional societies, and having much wider reach out. And particularly, I would like to focus into the southeastern part of the Europe, which this assistance has, actually we did not benefit out of this assistance, while at the same time we have been benefited for the past decade and a half from other programs of the assistance which were gender related from the Canada, mainly from the embassy in Canada, which were based mainly into the region. And the entire region of the southeastern part of the Europe, it is just about 25, 30 years that came out of the war, which has left tremendous consequences for the entire region, where the majority of the consequences, again, it goes with the women. Only within 3 countries, Croatia, Bosnia, and Kosovo, are about 70,000 women that were raped. And so itself, it is an indication of this program and the importance of this assistance to be expanded also into that region. And again, it's about this post-war and post-conflict societies that has much more need for this assistances due to the transition and transformation process that they have gone or they are underway of going through, because the right investment for the sustainable change and the progress on any post-war, post-conflict and transition societies is by investing on women and by investing in the young generation as well.
Is there another minute?
You have about 2.5 minutes.
Go ahead.
Si vous permettez, je vais essayer de répondre.
If I may, I will be answering in French, hoping that you have interpretation. Once again, thank you very much, Anita, and thank you to this subcommittee for giving us the opportunity to appear before you. We are very honored to have the former president of Kosovo here and to be able to talk to you. I would like to thank you ever so much as well for the question you have asked, how Canada can support Kosovo. Of course, Kosovo is grateful to Canada for everything Canada has done. We share human values. We work for human rights. But thank you for having supported Kosovo. Thank you for having recognized our independence and our institutions up to now, and especially in the international scene. It is thanks to Canada's support and the support of our democratic partners that we exist as a multi-ethnic society, and we're proud to be so. We protect the same value. We all protect the same values. Canada can help us with regards to gender equality, to make sure that women are on the same level as men. Progress has been made, as our former president said, but we hope that there will be even more progress on people who disappeared. About 1,600 people, as it stands, are still missing. Our neighbors to the north, Serbia, do not cooperate enough. We hope that your committee will be able to raise awareness with Canadian authorities so that we can go even further in that direction. The second question, where Canada can help. Canada is a model of diversity of multi-ethnic societies. Unfortunately, our neighbor to the north, Serbia, is putting on pressure, asking Serbian peoples to leave institutions in Kosovo. We saw recently the case of the Kosovo security forces. When they go to Serbia for family reasons, for example, pressure is exerted upon them by Serbian authorities. Sometimes they're even arrested to try and discourage them from being part of our institutions in Kosovo. And so Canada could help us to defend these common values. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you, President Yahiaga, for being here today. It's an honor to have you, and thank you for your very important testimony. Before we go, I would like to ensure that we invite all the members of the committee and all staff. Tomorrow evening, the Canada-Kosovo Friendship Group, together with the Embassy of Kosovo, is going to be doing a film showing, a film called Thinking of You, about sexual violence as a tool of war in Kosovo. It's at 180 Wellington in room 430 at 5:30 p.m. So I hope that those of you who want to learn more about this topic would be able to attend at that time. Well, thank you very much to our guests, and I will be suspending for just 1 minute as we switch over to the next witness. Thank you very much. Everybody, and thank you very much. I want to thank our next witness for being here today. We have another very important topic today, which is the situation of human rights in Cameroon. Our witness is Felix Nkongo, who is a human rights lawyer and the president of the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium, and also executive director of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. And we are short for time, so I'll ask you to begin right away with your remarks, 7 or 8 minutes, and then we will go to the questions. So please go ahead.
Thank you, honorable members. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss about the human rights and humanitarian situation in the Anglophone part of Cameroon. As far back as October 2016, there were peaceful protests in Anglophone Cameroon from lawyers and teachers, which degenerated into the crisis that we are facing today. As a result of the repression of the government against the lawyers and the teachers and the civil society who were clamoring for a better legal and educational system, who were clamoring to fight against the erosion of the common law, the struggle degenerated into an armed struggle as we have it today. Most of the moderate leaders were arrested, charged in a military tribunal on grounds of terrorism, secession, incitement of civil war. And during the period, the struggle moved from the clamor for a federation, the clamor for a better living condition, to an independence movement. The government has not made things easy for the moderates and for those who believe in the unity of the state. As a result of the constant arrest and detention of pro-democracy activists, of those who are just clamoring for better rights of the Anglophones, the burning down of villages, the destruction of livelihood, it has led to a refugee and a humanitarian catastrophe in the Anglophone part of the country. We have extrajudicial killings. Close to 1,000 Anglophones are currently detained at the various prisons in the country. The judicial process is very slow. The average time for a matter to come up for hearing would be up to 8 months. I was a living witness. I was detained for 8 months and released on the 30th with others by the President of the Republic. But during this period, the tension only increases. We believe that there is a need for an all-inclusive dialogue. The government has to speak to each and every Cameroonian, each and every Anglophone. The government has to speak to those who have taken up arms against the government, because it's only through a veritable and a holistic dialogue that we can find a solution to the crisis that is affecting us. Cameroon is in a very interesting part of the continent. It's in the West and Central Africa. The SMAC and the ECOWAS, Cameroon borders both regions. And if Cameroon goes down, the Chad, Gabon, Congo, and Nigeria, they also go down with Cameroon. But I am here today to plead with this House to try to see how we can find a solution. The gross human rights violations, the crimes against humanity and war crimes taking place in the country need to stop. Voices have to be heard. We have a shared humanity. We owe a responsibility to protect. Canadian MPs, Canadian businessmen and women, Canadian diplomatic missions owe us Cameroonians a duty to ensure that we find a solution to the crisis. Cameroon, like Canada, is a bilingual and a bicultural and a biracial country. French and English are the official languages of the country, meaning that we share something in common. Both of us are in the Commonwealth. Cameroon is in the Commonwealth with Canada. Cameroon is in the Francophonie, like Canada also. It means that Canada has some leverage that can play on the Commonwealth and also on the Francophonie for us to find a solution to the situation. The Canadian mission in Cameroon have made statements at times condemning or calling for dialogue, but we think that that is not enough. They need to go beyond just making statement and condemnation. We think that this committee can issue, a statement, a public statement, condemning the gross human rights violations taking place in the country, condemning the war crimes and crimes against humanity taking place by both parties, because also we have armed groups which are also committing atrocities in the country. But it is important also to call on government to create an enabling environment so that the more than 500,000 internally displaced persons could return to their villages, that the more than 50,000 refugees could return to their villages, and to also ensure that those who are currently detained should have access to their lawyers, that the process should be free and fair, that civilians should not be tried in a military tribunal. We have a jurisprudence of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights in 2009 that clearly stated that Anglophones cannot be arrested in the Southwest and Northwest region and tried in a military tribunal. And more often than not, they are tried in French language that most of them don't understand. The military tribunal bases itself on the 2014 anti-terrorism law. The law is not really to fight against terrorism, but it's a law that was passed to fight against dissent. It's a law that was passed to fight against those who are clamoring for change. And when the law was passed, most people did not understand that the law would be used to try Anglophones. Everybody thought it would be used to try Boko Haram officers. So the Canadians, the MPs, have to tell the government that it is inconceivable that civilians would be tried in a military tribunal. There is the need for a dialogue. There is also the need for the MPs, for Canadians, to urge the government that if we cannot find a solution, we can ask the people of Southern Cameroon to exercise their right of a referendum, which is provided in the Constitution. Some are clamoring for a federation, and others believe in the independence of the state of Southern Cameroon. We are in a democracy. The best option would be that they should give the people of the Southern Cameroon the option to decide in a federation whether they want to stay in the current dispensation or they want to have a separate state. But in the meantime, since that is a political process that will take long and it's very cumbersome, we need to arrest the human rights violations that is going place. We need to ensure that the humanitarian catastrophe is brought to the attention of the national and the international community. Canada can raise it at the level of the Security Council, can raise it at the level of the General Assembly, can have discussions with its other partners like the US, the UK, the EU, so that we find a solution to this catastrophe. It is not really reported in mainstream media the way it's supposed to be done. That's a very unfortunate situation. But if you go to the Southwest and the Northwest regions that constitute the Southern Cameroons, the situation is deplorable. Children no longer go to school. There is fear. The civilian population has been terrorized. Extrajudicial killing runs riot. There's no day in the Southwest and the Northwest where young men are not shot and killed for no just reason, because they look like terrorists, because they are dressed like members of one of the arms groups. Nobody gives them an opportunity to hear their story. We have a myriad of examples. On the 30th of July, 5 young men were sitting in around a park in Boya. Boya used to be the capital of the German and the British Cameroon. 4 of them were shot to death. 1 survived. Fortunately, or unfortunately for us, we were going somewhere and we took him to the hospital. But the military guys came there to look for him. We had to take him out of the hospital. He's currently having treatment. We have examples. Last month, 12 young men were shot and killed in a house. These extrajudicial killings have been documented. Nobody gives any reason for them being killed. You know, because there's an armed struggle, because the government argues that they are supposed to be protecting the civilian, the government has taken upon itself to kill people without any reason. And there is not much that we can do in the country because everybody is scared. And with the victory of the president for the next 7 years, if a solution is not found to the problem, we would be sliding into a civil war. Some have argued that there is a civil war, but each passing day we degenerate into a civil war. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll begin immediately with questions with Mr. Sweet, I believe. Yes, Mr. Sweet for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nkongo. I'm going to give you 2 questions, and I'll just allow you to answer those because our time is limited. One is I'd like you to tell us about the separatist groups. I don't want to take away from your testimony, but we'd like to hear about them, the number of them, how many are operating, and also if the National Commission for the Promotion of Bilingualism is still limping along. Is it operational? Has it gotten anywhere?
Yes, as a result of the killings of unarmed civilians, the arrest, the burning down of villages, Anglophones groupings decided to come together to protect themselves in what they termed it was a self-defense. So that is how we had the creation of various separatist groups and arms groups, which are now also operating in the country. But these separatist movements have always existed. They existed in the 90s, the Southern Cameroon's National Council, because of the historical setup of Cameroon between the French and the English, and the fact that the process of reunification and the conference that took place in Fumban did not really go as it was supposed to be. Most Anglophones believe that there are attempts to assimilate them and to conquer and dominate them. So there's always been these protests by various groupings in Anglophone Cameroon clamoring for independence. The Commission of Bilingualism and Multiculturalism, if you talk to an Anglophone in particular, it's really of no object. I know it was created whilst we were in jail, but it was more to please the international community. It was more to show to the international community that they were doing something. The problems of the Anglophones is not about multiculturalism. It's not about bilingualism. The average Anglophone understands and speaks French. It's a cultural problem. It's a problem of assimilation. It's a historical problem. It's a problem of marginalization and oppression and suppression. A problem where the people perceive that the form of the state, the unitary decentralization, has failed. It's not addressing the problems that they face. The specificity of the Anglophones in Cameroon cannot be addressed in the unitary decentralization as seen in the 1996 Constitution and as amended in the 2008 Constitution. So there is the cry for a return to either the two-state federation or at worst or at best an independent Southern Cameroon.
You've asked for the Canadian government's help, and rightly so. I want to ask you, though, are there some governments now that are placing diplomatic pressure on the Cameroonian government that are gaining some successful movement?
There are some governments that have been talking. You know, the most successful thing that Mr. Biya did was that nobody was talking about Cameroon. That's his biggest success in 36 years. So nobody talked about Cameroon. In mainstream media, they will not discuss about Cameroon in the Canadian Parliament or in the House of Lords. But at least now they're talking about Cameroon. So governments have been putting pressure. Of recent, the French president congratulated him for his victory, but reminded him that he should find a solution to the Anglophone problem. I know the Americans had also did. The ambassador had told Mr. Biya to think about his legacy, to try to see how we can find a solution. The UN advisor in charge of genocide also had brought it to the attention of Mr. Biya that he should find a solution to the crisis. Because if we don't find a solution, if the international community doesn't put pressure, it might degenerate into a Francophone and an Anglophone fight. For the time being, it's a fight between the Anglophones and the institutions of the state. But if it degenerates to a fight between the Anglophones and the Francophones, then we might get into what happened in Rwanda. And let's not forget, the never again principle would have been dealt a serious blow if Cameroon degenerates into Rwanda.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to Mr. Tabara.
Thank you very much for coming in. And again, we're very limited on time. So I just wanted to ask you, in terms of the situation of the press and journalists prior to the election and after the election, and how the government has imprisoned for 11 to 15-year terms to certain journalists, and how that's degraded a lot of the democratic institutions and the freedom of press.
The government has always modeled the press in Cameroon, in spite of the liberty laws of 1990 that ushered in a wave of press freedom, democracy, and respect of human rights. It's more cosmetic in its application. The government really doesn't respect. We have Mancho BBC, who used to be a reporter, was given 15 years. We have about 3 or 4 Anglophone journalists who are in jail. We have others who were arrested of recent because of protests. And because the government has a way of ensuring that you can be sued for defamation, your press license can be withdrawn, you can be suspended. So most of the press guys, they are very, very weary. Everybody tries as much as possible not to be seen to be offensive to the government. So criticisms are very limited. The government has succeeded in creating lots of media houses that they are in control. They sanction the media houses that are very critical of them, and those media houses which preach hate speech but which are supportive of the government, no sanction is taken against them. So it's really double standard, and we are worried, we're scared that within the next 7 years of Mr. Biya's presidency, the press would really suffer. The civic space is shrinking. Not only the freedom of press, freedom of expression and assembly is shrinking. It's now difficult to have an authorization to hold a rally, to hold a meeting, to hold a press conference. We saw what recently happened with the leaders of some of the opposition parties, that their press conference was banned. So we're going to have tough times with the press as we get into the next 7 years of Mr. Biya's mandate.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hardcastle.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask you, Felix, if I may, can you tell us a little bit about your own background and your increased activism and the perspectives that you have now on ways that Canada can be involved? I understand you are an activist and you started out as a lawyer, and you have in a legal community, and just tell us your perspectives, and maybe, and just to take the rest of my time to maybe add a little bit of your understanding of how we led to, or how things escalated to the point of the Republic of Ambazonia being established.
Okay, thank you. I'm a lawyer. I studied in Cameroon, Nigeria, and the U.S. I was called to the bar in 1996. I have been practicing law. I worked in the UN as a legal advisor to the International Criminal Tribunal. I then worked as a human rights advisor with the UN mission in Afghanistan. I moved to Congo as a legal advisor to the UN police in DRC, then came back to Afghanistan as a legal advisor to the UN mission. But 3 years ago, I decided to come back to Cameroon because I felt that there was a need to go back home and try to see how I can contribute to the democratic process. During my stay in the US in 2005, a group of Africans, students who were doing the LLM in International Human Rights and Criminal Law, we founded an organization called the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, with headquarters in Cameroon, Sierra Leone, and in Kenya. I happen to be the director and the founding president. So when I came back, I started running the organization whilst also having a law firm. But it wasn't enough just to be a lawyer and just to have a human rights organization. Being an activist, we decided to come together with other lawyers to create the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium, which I was the first president. It was the consortium that reawakened Anglophone consciousness and nationalism and patriotism, because over time, people had been complaining, but they needed a movement. They needed leaders who could at least be courageous enough to raise the issues with government. So as a result of that, we started a peaceful protest. But because we have a government which really doesn't respond, lawyers had written about 4 memorandums to the state, documenting the problems that they face. But unfortunately, nobody responded to them. Nobody even acknowledged receipt of these documents. So in 2016, they decided to have a sit-in strike action. For 1 month, the Minister of Justice, the attorney, nobody responded to them. Then we decided that we would march in the street with our wigs and gowns to call the attention of the government. If they were really sleeping, they would realize that we mean business. But the lawyers were brutalized, they were beaten, they were dragged in the mud, their wigs and gowns were seized. As a result of that, teachers and students had to join them in protesting. But these were peaceful protests. But unfortunately, on the 17th of January, internet was disconnected in the English-speaking part of the country for 3 months. I don't know whether you can really figure out what it means for internet to be disconnected in part of the country for 3 months. And that's kind of collective punishment, because it was disconnected. We've had the war in the north on Boko Haram, which has been going on for more than a year. At no point in time, internet was cut off. But because of the protests in English-speaking Cameroon, internet was cut off for 3 months. We were arrested, blindfolded, and cuffed, and they drove us for close to 10 hours, locked up in very dehumanizing conditions, and charged in front of a military tribunal. So during this period, when they had taken out the moderate leaders, the movement morphed into other groupings that had been existing, but they really did not have the voice. So now a platform had been created. The young people in Anglophone Cameroon who wanted change had created that platform, which we were just fortunate to be their leaders. But when we left, and because of the treatment that they had given to those who were clamoring just for federation and a better living condition in the legal and educational system, most people argue that if you were preaching for federation and you were facing the death penalty, I would rather preach secession and separation and equally face the same death penalty. So that is how positions hardened because of the way people were killed, the way people were arrested. That is how positions hardened to now we have a separatist move. But the government still had an opportunity to find a solution. It was still easy for them to at least try to address the problem. But at no point in time have they attempted in finding a solution to the crisis. When they released us on the 31st of August, it was a golden opportunity to release all those who were detained. But they choose to release 3 of myself, Justice Aya, who used to be a sitting Supreme Court justice, was arrested and detained for 7 months without any trial. But they released some of us and left the others in jail. So all these have hardened position in such a way that if you talk to the average person in Anglophone Cameroon, separation, it's now en vogue. You know, now the majority of the people would not settle for anything less than separation. The majority of the people now are asking for a referendum for them to determine their fate. But we still believe that something can still be done. Notwithstanding the situation, we can at least have a dialogue. We can at least have a negotiated settlement. You know, the diaspora living in Canada also would have a role to play, you know, because they are very influential. They have the money, they have a voice that we can involve them also in trying to see how we can find a holistic solution. So the problem cannot just be solved internally without including the diaspora. I'll give you an example. Cameroon has a way of blacklisting Cameroonians by birth who are out of the country. Yes, some of them might have a dual nationality, but we have Cameroonians who have arrived at the airport with a visa and they were sent back because they encourage dissent abroad. We cannot solve the problems in Cameroon without addressing the issue of the diaspora. We need to find a way that we would grant amnesty or clemency to those who are living abroad, who have not been convicted, but who are in a blacklist by the government, meaning that there are people who have parents in Cameroon, their parents die, they cannot come to Cameroon for fear of being arrested. So if these people cannot come to Cameroon as we know, they would rather prefer to come to Cameroon, which is Ambazonia. So we believe that the government of Canada can do a lot in trying to create enabling environment, in putting pressure on the government to call for a dialogue, and at best ask the people of Cameroon, ask the government to organize a referendum.
Yes, and thank you very much. Unfortunately, that is our time. I know we had a very limited time today, but thank you very much for your testimony before this committee, and thank you to the members for being here today. And with that, we adjourn the committee. Thank you.